What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Rebel Hearts Rising. I'm your host, Tam Burke, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. I have something that I want to share with you that is funny and honestly a little embarrassing. It's totally rebel hearted, so let's jump right in. I'm a cookie fiend. I love cookies, chocolate and something doughy. Oh my God. And in my house, Matt makes the cookies. And I've tried to make cookies a bunch of different times, and they always just come out not as great. And this man is a cookie machine. He made cookies for my family for Christmas, like hands down, they're the best cookies. They were gone in like almost a day. It was crazy. And recently I went to go make the cookies and he's like, no, I'll get it. And I was like, why do you think your cookies are so good? And he said, you make cookies to eat them, and I make cookies with love, and you can taste the difference. And I don't think that he understood what a mic drop moment that was for me, but it started to illuminate a pattern in my entire life that I was like, damn, I need to pay attention to that. And so today we're going to talk about the difference between doing things with love and doing it because you have to do it. And even really taking this one step further, where I noticed myself say like, oh, I have to go to the gym. But I love to work out. It's one of my favorite hobbies. So what am I talking about? I have to go to the gym. I'm excited to go to the gym. Or, as y'all know, love to walk rocket. It's like one of the highlights of my life, truly. We're both so happy on our walks. And I'll often think to myself, I need to take Rocket for a walk. I have to take Rocket for a walk. And so it's like, what about the life that we're living that starts to become an eternal checklist? Doing things to get them done, or doing things for the result of it rather than the process of enjoyment. And to me, this is really what being an artist is about. And I think this is why Matt has so much wisdom, is because as an artist, he realizes that the magic is in the process. It's in the doing. It's in the being of what's happening and enjoying what's happening in the moment. And so I want to bring this to you because how often are you doing something to check it off the list? How often are you having unconscious experiments where it's just something that needs to get done rather than something that you look forward to? And how many things in your life could you actually look forward to more if you put more love into them? Because we all have points in our life that we don't love what we're doing. There are moments at work or uncomfortable family experiences where they feel challenging. But what might happen if we met that with love? And I often feel like, where am I doing something to get it done versus where am I in the process of doing it, in the process of being in love with it? And I often really find that this goes hand in hand with business too. How often are we doing something for a result, to make money, to move up and get a promotion, rather than being in love with the work? And something that really has hit home for me and recognizing in my own life is, where did this disconnect happen? Because for me, and I'm curious how this lands for you, I used to do a lot more things in my life with love. I have this really distinct memory. We were with our friends, Mo and Brian, and we were going to lunch in Asheville. And I remember walking up the sidewalk on the way to the restaurant and just thinking my heart was gonna freaking explode. I was so happy, so excited. I couldn't wait for breakfast. I just had such a beautiful trip with them. And like, truly, this is a memory that's anchored into my soul around the joy of just going to breakfast. And somewhere along the way, I realized I've had a rough few years. This is also how Rebel Hearts Rising was born. But maybe there's something that's going on with our heart space. Maybe after COVID and feeling like closeness was a danger, we started to pull back. Maybe it was through any kind of heartbreak or betrayal that you've experienced. Maybe it was just the way that the world feels more isolating now, how we see less people. Y'all, I started working from home full time with my online coaching job. It's not for me. Like, I'm going back to teaching way more classes. I love being with people, being in connection. And so this is where I really start to look at what is going on that our hearts kind of close off to experiences. And is there something that we need to do, shadow work, trauma integration, to reopen ourselves? Or is it more about the rebel-hearted moments, the tiny moments of opening our heart in that moment? And this is where another huge energetic principle came into play here. I really don't even know that he even remembers saying this to me. And it's been like, things have really been churning in my mind. Essentially, to me, what Matt was talking about was presence. If I'm making cookies to make them, right? Like I'm putting love into the cookies, it's because I'm in that present moment. That's intentionality. Versus when I'm making cookies to eat them, I'm actually thinking about the future orientation of the cookies. And how often does this show up in our life across everything? How many times have you gotten advice or have you been in a situation where you just want someone to listen rather than to give advice? And that's that same kind of thing. Rather than being in the moment and hearing you and validating you, it's advice. It's like fixing, changing a future state. And I'm guilty of this too. And so it really has tickled my brain in how can I be way more present in everything that I'm doing? And not just that, like how can I meet it with this sense of gratitude and love? Because the highest frequency that emits off the human body that we can measure is from our heart. And in the quantum, we know this as our biofield, or the yogis call it our aura, or I like to call it your frequency field. And so when we're operating at such a high level of love, we know the law of attraction says that like attracts more like. And so what if just by being present and being in love with what's happening, you have an ability to create like more wonder in your life than you could ever imagine? And it sounds so silly. Like ultimately we're talking about baking cookies, but it's not actually about the cookies. I mean, they taste like 1,000% better when he makes them, but it's more so about like just rushing through life, just going from one thing to another and not really being in that moment. And I can be guilty of this too. Like I love to listen to podcasts or talk on the phone and walk and, kind of constantly be in a state of movement. If you listened to last episode, we talked about hot girl summer and kind of getting out of hustle culture, leaning into the European way of summer. And it's the same kind of thing. I'm having these deep, powerful lessons about slowing down. And I'm wondering how that resonates for you. Do you feel like in your life, you're moving through things with intention? Sometimes I feel like I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get all the things done that I'm trying to accomplish, and maybe not even doing everything well because I'm focused more on quantity than quality. And there's this inner fear that can happen about what it says about us if we cut back on what we're doing, or we cut back on our commitments, or the way that we see ourselves performing. Because I do know that I am on the fringe of society in terms of what I believe. But the rate in which we're working, the amount of time that we dedicate ourselves to our work, even if like truly y'all, I feel very grateful that this is my soul calling. Like I feel very connected to sharing wisdom and learning and alchemizing experiences for you guys so that there's something that you can pull from that too. But work is still work. And that is where the hot girl summer crept in, is because yes, I'm very lucky to do what I'm doing, but in essence, I felt like I was working all the time. My brain was constantly thinking about programs that I could create and how I can create value for you guys and like really serving this community that I'm slowly building because I'm in love with this experience that I'm doing. But our energy, our frequency is most potent when we're actually doing less, but we're really present in everything that we're doing. And presence is a muscle. Like, you ever give a Zoom presentation, or even you're on Zoom with someone one-to-one, like there's such deep presence that's required in that. Of course, in person too, but anything that really requires you to be there 100% of the time in your fullness. And that is something that we don't do often or daily in a lot of how we're interacting. And I even notice it in how often I pick up my phone in between when I'm doing things. Like, we are so distracted. We have been so conditioned to multitasking. We've been so disempowered by cutting off our own power sources into putting everything into what we're doing in the moment. Not thinking about what is left to do or how the cookies could be better. We keep coming back to the cookie reference, but being like really present with what we're doing and then infusing that experience with love. And so, what is it that we need to do to change something from being a task into something that we love? And actually, I even started to wonder, what is our orientation to love? Because the truth of what I've found is that a lot of us have mixed emotions around love. We grew up in families where perhaps it wasn't always super stable, or where we experienced loss young, or we had a huge heartbreak at some point and it made us afraid to give ourselves fully again. And that's the thing that I'm so passionate about in Rebel Hearts Rising is, y'all, I'm about to cry. Like, there are just moments in life that tear us down. And I believe that there's this divinity for all of it, right? Like, it is through the rebirth. It is through getting back up again when we feel like our teeth have been knocked out, that we create so much inner confidence. But it's also about the stories that we store, the fear of the past coming again, and how we project that into the future. I don't know if I've shared this on this platform, but a false story that I learned when I lost my friend was to not love anything too deeply because it could be taken from you. And so maybe that's where somewhere along the way I decided to put less love into everything that I was doing because I was afraid to love so deeply. And this is why some people ask, like, I don't get the name of Rebel Hearts Rising, because it is work for your heart to feel the pain that it has inevitably felt in this world and to still keep moving forward. And some of us have big fat T, capital T traumas. And some of us experience the traumas of just living in this world. You know, even in the political situation that's happening, it doesn't matter what side you're on. The whole thing is insane. And the way that we treat people or are talking about people and the way that our leaders are talking about people, how can that not erode at the trust that we have in humanity? And even if your day-to-day relationships are wonderful, something collectively has changed. And so this is where, like, I know this is very spiritual kind of bullshit, but I really truly believe this. I believe that we can change the world when we recognize the ways that we're not showing up fully in love. And it's as silly as the freaking cookies we've been talking about this whole episode, or it's as much as relationships that we're in. Recognizing that we're holding back on our own love for situations because we're afraid of loss. Y'all, I've been through a few injuries in the last few years, and I even noticed this kind of like trepidation around wanting to work out really hard again. And what if something happens, and like this constant state of worry from the past. And I call it meeting the moment. When we meet the moment, we are not concerned about what has happened in the past or what we're forecasting or worrying about in the future, but we are right here in this moment in time. And they say that's the most powerful moment that exists because we're in it. And because when we project into the future or pull from the past, we're bringing all of this baggage into the current situation, and then we don't see with clarity. And so this is why rebuilding the inner strength to, number one, have the courage to be honest with yourself. Y'all, I cannot tell you how often I have lied to myself, and hindsight is only 2020. I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, no, definitely not. And so it can be challenging sometimes to look at our life and see, like, where am I actually not showing up in love? Where am I showing up to only gain the future aspect of this thing, the cookies when they're baked? Right? Or working out only for how I feel after, or only for what I look like, rather than really falling in love with the process. And focusing on the process over the results is a very feminine quality, because it's not about achieving, it's about being in the moment. And I'll say this 100 times, feminine energetics, everybody has. Doesn't matter how you identify in your own body or sexually, everybody has a masculine and feminine side. And is when we bring our masculine and feminine to the same degree and we lift them up, that we have a better relationship with ourselves and therefore those around us. And feminine energetics are so potent because it is the art of being. It is the art of understanding the divine mystery and really surrendering into that. And if you don't know what that means, essentially what I'm talking about is the ability to know that being in the moment, pouring your love into everything that you're doing, even if it doesn't make sense, will create a better future for you because of the way that you're showing up in the moment. And I have an episode for you guys next week with an amazing guest, my friend Emily. You may know her as the bold and bougie hippie. And she gave us an incredible lesson on manifestation. And part of what she offered to us was this recognition of thought patterns, was this recognition of patterning. And how when we quantum leap, when we make big changes in self, it is because we choose to do things differently. I've heard this defined as choosing new neural pathways. And so something that I often see this as is, if y'all have ever been on a hike, there's typically a really clear main path and it's been like bushwhacked and sometimes there's even cement or it's very clear. And then off to the side, sometimes there's more like the beaten path. And when we're faced with both parts of ourself, the path that is clearly paved and the path that is less paved and you might get some thorns in you, but it's more uncomfortable to take in the moment, but it creates new opportunities because of the way that you choose to move differently. And so that's also what I'm talking about here is like reawakening a part of you that maybe fell asleep. That's how it feels like for me, right? I have always been someone who has led with my heart deeply, who feels everything very deeply in my heart space. And maybe for you, it's the same. The sensitivity was too much. You couldn't live in a world with your heart wide open like that. And so at some point you learned to close, rightfully so, to protect ourselves, boundaries, make sure that we can actually love more deeply because we create safe space for ourselves. But what if you look at your relationship to love? What if you have the humility and the courage to start to ask yourself where you could show up even more in a place of love? And every little thing that you do, from the cookies to the presence that you have in your daily life, to the way that you show up to relationships, to your workouts, to your hobbies. And then the biggest leap from there is that once we actually put love, presence, and attention into the things that we enjoy doing, life really begins to shift when we can use that same high frequency energy to bring it into all parts of life. When we have the reverence and the understanding that even the things that are uncomfortable are the things that bring us joy. So I feel really excited to leave you guys with this. And I invite you to listen to next week's episode with Emily. It continues to build on this in terms of manifestation. And Emily is an incredible guest. It was so fun to interview her. And as always, my email list, you guys get journal prompts with everything that happens. So you're going to get some journal prompts so that you can really look at love and showing up in love and presence and attention in your own life. And always, 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 if this landed with you, please send this to somebody who you think this would help. I love spreading this message around presence and intention. And I'm available to chat in the DMs. On Instagram, I'm at tam.burke. And I love hearing like what landed for you and what this awakened within you. I'll catch you guys soon. Thanks, friends.